He touched the ark, and in a heartbeat he was gone. Not a warning, not a moment to plead for mercy. Just an instant, and the man named Uzzah was dead. His lifeless body sprawled in the dust as the music and celebration froze in horror. For centuries, this story has haunted the faithful and confounded the curious. Why would the God of Israel, the source of all compassion, strike a man down for what seemed like a well-intentioned act? Was it really just about touching a sacred object? Or was there something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface, a secret sin that no one dared to speak of? Imagine the scene, a nation on the move, hope and anticipation pulsing through the air. The Ark of the Covenant, golden, mysterious, the very throne of the invisible, was finally returning to Jerusalem after years in exile. King David himself danced before it, his joy unrestrained, his people swept up in a wave of celebration. The oxen carrying the ark stumbled, the cart lurched, and Uzzah, son of Abinadab, reached out to steady the holy vessel. In that split second, the boundary between the human and the divine was crossed, and the consequences were immediate and irreversible. But what if the real danger wasn't in Uzzah's hand, but in his heart? What if the ark, that enigmatic chest of gold and mystery, was more than a symbol of law and power? What if it was a living mirror, reflecting not only the glory of God, but the hidden shadows within those who approached it? Gnostic tradition whispers that the material world is just a veil, a surface concealing deeper realities. What we see is never the whole story. Every object, every action, every law conceals a secret, sometimes glorious, sometimes terrifying. The ark itself was a paradox, a box of wood and gold, yet said to house the very presence of the divine. Between its cherubim, the Shekinah, the feminine aspect of God, was believed to dwell, a radiant cloud of energy that could bless or consume. The ark was a threshold, a place where heaven and earth touched, where the boundaries of flesh and spirit blurred. To approach it was to risk everything, for it demanded not just ritual purity, but inner alignment, a harmony of body, mind, and soul. Uzzah was no stranger to the ark. He had grown up in its shadow, his family entrusted with its safekeeping for decades. He knew the rules, the rituals, the stories of those who had dared to defy the sacred boundaries and paid the price. Yet on that fateful day, something compelled him to act. A reflex, perhaps, or a sense of duty. But Gnostic wisdom teaches that nothing is truly accidental. Every action springs from the depths of our being, shaped by desires, fears, and secrets we may not even recognize. What, then, was hidden in Uzzah's heart as he reached for the ark? The ancient texts are silent, but the Gnostics invite us to look beyond the literal, to search for the spiritual drama beneath the surface. In their view, the true temple is not made of stone, but of flesh and spirit. The real impurity is not dirt on the hands, but darkness in the soul. Sexuality, in Gnostic thought, is a force of immense power, a gateway to higher knowledge or a pitfall leading to spiritual death. When misused or repressed, it can become a poison, corrupting the very core of our being. Some whispered traditions, passed down in secret circles, and apocryphal writings suggest that Uzzah carried a hidden shame, a recent transgression perhaps, or a pattern of desire left unresolved. In the world of the Bible, sexual sin was not just a private failing, it was a spiritual contagion, capable of defiling not just the individual, but the entire community. The ark, as the nexus of divine energy, was intolerant of such impurity. To touch it while carrying hidden darkness was to invite instant judgment. But this is not just a story about ancient rituals and forgotten taboos. It is a mirror held up to every soul who dares to approach the sacred while hiding secrets within. The Gnostics saw in the ark a symbol of the human heart, beautiful, mysterious, and perilous. To draw near to the divine is to risk exposure, to have the hidden parts of ourselves laid bare. The real question is not why Uzzah died, but what he brought with him when he reached for the holy. As the dust settled and the music died, King David was left stunned, angry, and afraid. The people recoiled from the ark, their joy turned to terror. The celebration was over, replaced by a silence heavy with questions. Was God truly so harsh, so unforgiving? Or was there a deeper lesson, a warning about the dangers of unreconciled desire and unexamined motives? This is the mystery at the heart of the story, the tension between law and grace, between the visible and the invisible, between the act and the intention behind it. The ark was not just a test of obedience, but a crucible for the soul. In the Gnostic vision, every encounter with the sacred is a confrontation with our own hidden depths. The death of Uzzah is a riddle, a challenge to look beyond the surface and ask, what secrets do we carry when we approach the holy? What shadows linger in the corners of our hearts? As we move deeper into this story, we will uncover the layers of meaning concealed within the ark, the nature of hidden sin, and the Gnostic teachings that transform this ancient tragedy into a living question for every seeker. For the journey to Jerusalem is not just a procession through history, it is a passage through the soul, a call to face the mysteries within ourselves. And the ark, silent and golden, waits for those who dare to draw near. The ark's return to Jerusalem was more than a national event. It was a spiritual crossroads. The people of Israel, weary from years of conflict and exile, looked to the ark as a sign that the old covenant, the sacred bond with the divine, was being restored. But beneath the surface of celebration, a current of anxiety ran deep. The ark was not a relic to be paraded. It was a living paradox, a vessel of both blessing and danger. Generations had passed down stories of its power, of plagues in Philistine cities, of priests struck dead by a single misstep, of miracles and mysteries that defied explanation. To touch the ark was to touch the heart of the cosmos itself. David, the shepherd king, understood this tension. His joy at the ark's approach was genuine, but so was his fear. He knew the stories, the warnings, the traditions that surrounded the ark with awe and dread. Yet, in his exuberance, he may have forgotten that the divine cannot be tamed or managed. The ark was not a trophy. It was a threshold, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin. The Gnostics would say it was a portal, an opening through which the higher realms could reach down and through which the unprepared could be consumed. Uzzah, the son of Abinadab, was not just a bystander, he was a guardian, a man who had lived in the presence of the ark for years. Some would say he should have known better, that his familiarity bred a dangerous comfort. But the Gnostic tradition invites us to look deeper. Familiarity is not the same as understanding. To live near the sacred is not to be immune to its demands. In fact, the closer we come to the holy, the more our hidden faults are brought to light. The ark's power was not merely physical, it was spiritual, psychological, even erotic in its intensity. The cherubim atop the ark, their wings touching, formed a space known as the mercy seat, the meeting point of heaven and earth, masculine and feminine, law and grace. In Gnostic symbolism, this was the place of union, the alchemical marriage, the reconciliation of opposites. To approach the ark was to approach the mystery of one's own divided self, to stand before the unyielding light that exposes all shadows. What, then, was Uzzah's shadow? The text is silent, but the silence is suggestive. In the ancient world, sexual purity was not a private matter. It was a public concern, a spiritual condition that affected the entire community. The Gnostics taught that sexuality was a reflection of the soul's relationship to the divine, a force that could elevate or destroy depending on how it was used. To misuse this power was to invite chaos, to disrupt the harmony that the ark represented. Some apocryphal traditions hint at a deeper story, a rumor, a whisper, that Uzzah's touch was not merely a breach of ritual, but a manifestation of inner disorder. Perhaps he carried a recent shame, a secret transgression that left him spiritually unbalanced. Perhaps his act was not just a reflex, but an unconscious attempt to grasp what could not be possessed, to control what must be surrendered to. The ark in this reading becomes a mirror, reflecting not just the holiness of God, but the hidden desires and fears of those who approach it. This is the central conflict, the mystery that challenges the traditional reading. Was Uzzah's death a simple punishment for breaking the rules, or was it the inevitable result of a deeper spiritual law, the principle that the sacred cannot coexist with the unreconciled shadow? The Gnostics would say that the real danger lies not in the object, but in the subject, not in the ark, but in the heart of the one who touches it. As the procession ground to a halt, as shock and grief rippled through the crowd, David himself was shaken to the core. His anger was not just at God, but at the inscrutable nature of the sacred. How could joy turn so quickly to tragedy? How could a moment of celebration become a scene of death? The ark was left at the house of Obed-Edom, its power undiminished, its mystery deepened. The people withdrew, chastened, their questions unanswered. But the story does not end here. The ark remains, silent and enigmatic, a challenge to every generation that seeks to draw near to the divine. The Gnostic path is not one of easy answers, but of deeper questions. What do we bring with us when we approach the holy? What secrets lie buried in our hearts, waiting to be revealed by the light of the sacred? The journey has only begun, and the ark still waits, for those who have the courage to face not only its glory, but their own hidden truths. As we continue, we will delve further into the nature of hidden sin, the symbolism of the ark, and the Gnostic teachings that illuminate this ancient mystery. For the story of Uzzah is not just a warning from the past, it is a living parable, a call to self-examination, and an invitation to the deeper journey that lies ahead. The silence that followed Uzzah's death was not merely the hush of shock, it was the silence of a nation staring into a spiritual abyss. In the days that followed, the ark remained at the house of Obed-Edom, untouched, almost as if it were brooding. David, once exuberant, was now haunted. The people whispered, their joy curdled into fear. What had really happened on that road? Was this the wrath of a jealous God? Or was there a secret law at work, one that few understood, and even fewer dared to speak aloud? For the Gnostics, this was the moment when the veil began to lift. The outer drama of Uzzah's death was a signpost, pointing to an inner reality. They taught that the world we see is but a shadow of deeper truths, and that every event in the sacred story is a cipher, a code meant to awaken the soul. The ark was not just a box, it was a living symbol of the soul's journey, the perilous crossing from ignorance to knowledge, from shadow to light. But why did the ark demand such absolute purity? Why was a single touch, even with the best intentions, so dangerous? The answer, the Gnostics believed, lay in the nature of the ark itself. It was a vessel of paradoxes, mercy and judgment, masculine and feminine, creation and destruction. The cherubim atop the ark, facing each other with wings outstretched, represented the union of opposites, the point where dualities dissolve and the divine presence manifests. To approach the ark was to approach this mystery, to stand at the threshold where all masks are stripped away. In this light, Uzzah's story becomes more than a cautionary tale. It is a revelation of the hidden forces that shape our lives. The Gnostics saw sexuality not as a shameful secret, but as a sacred energy, a reflection of the soul's longing for union with the divine. Yet when this energy is misdirected or suppressed, it becomes a source of chaos, a wound that festers in the dark. The ancient Hebrews understood this too, though they spoke in the language of ritual purity and taboo. To be impure was not just to break a rule, It was to be out of harmony with the cosmic order. Some ancient commentators, drawing on lost traditions and apocryphal texts, suggested that Uzzah's sin was not just his hand, but his heart, perhaps even his body. They hinted at a recent act of sexual impurity, an unresolved desire, a secret shame that clung to him as he reached for the ark. In the Gnostic imagination, this was not mere gossip. It was a spiritual diagnosis. The ark, as the meeting place of heaven and earth, could not tolerate the presence of unreconciled darkness. The moment Uzzah touched it, the hidden wound was exposed, and the result was fatal. But this is not a story of condemnation. The Gnostics were not moralists. They were seekers of hidden wisdom. For them, the lesson of Uzzah was not to avoid the sacred, but to prepare for it. To approach the ark, to approach the divine, one must first confront the shadows within. The journey is not about perfection, but about honesty, about bringing the hidden parts of ourselves into the light. David, in his grief and confusion, began to understand this. He saw that the ark was not a weapon to be wielded, nor a prize to be won. It was a mystery to be entered with fear and trembling, with humility and awe. The people, too, learned to see the ark not as a threat, but as a mirror, a reflection of their own spiritual condition. In the house of Obed-Edom, something remarkable happened. Instead of bringing death, the ark brought blessing, abundance, fertility, joy. The same presence that had struck Uzzah down now overflowed with life. The Gnostics would say that the difference was not in the ark, but in the heart of the one who received it. Obed-Edom welcomed the ark with reverence, with openness, with a willingness to be transformed. The blessing flowed not because he was perfect, but because he was prepared. This is the twist at the heart of the story, a shift from fear to wonder, from judgment to grace. The ark is not a relic of the past. It is a living force, a call to awaken. The tragedy of Uzzah is not the end, but the beginning of a deeper journey. It is an invitation to examine our own lives, to ask what secrets we carry, what wounds we hide, what desires we fear to name. As David prepared to bring the ark to Jerusalem once more, he did so with new understanding. The procession would be different this time, marked by humility, by sacrifice, by a sense of the holy that was both joyful and trembling. The people would dance again, but their dance would be a prayer, a surrender to the mystery that the ark embodied. The story of Uzzah lingers, not as a warning to keep our distance, but as a challenge to draw near, with honesty, with courage, with a willingness to be changed. The ark waits for each of us, a threshold to the unknown, a mirror for the soul. And the journey is only beginning. But what if the ark's power was never truly about punishment? What if its true purpose was to reveal, to awaken, to transform? As the days passed in Obed-Edom's house, the people began to notice something extraordinary. The household flourished. Crops grew richer, children laughed louder, and a sense of peace settled over every threshold. Word spread quickly. The ark, once feared as an instrument of death, was now a wellspring of blessing. The paradox deepened. How could the same sacred object bring both destruction and abundance? The Gnostics saw in this a profound spiritual law. They taught that the divine is not divided. There is no wrath without mercy, no shadow without light. The ark's energy, they believed, responded not to outward form, but to inner truth. Where there was openness, humility, and a willingness to confront the self, the ark's presence became a source of life. Where there was hidden shame, unresolved desire, or a refusal to see one's own darkness, the same presence became unbearable, even fatal. This was the twist that upended everything the people thought they knew. It was not the ark that changed, but the hearts of those who approached it. The story of Uzzah and Obed-Edom became a living parable, whispered by firesides and pondered in secret gatherings. The Gnostic sages would gather their disciples and ask, "What is the ark in your own soul?" What blessings do you refuse because you fear to face your shadow? What hidden wound keeps you from the fullness of life? Ancient scrolls, rarely read in public, hinted at a deeper connection between sexuality and the sacred. In the Gnostic vision, sexual energy was a current running through all of creation, a force that, when acknowledged and integrated, could lead to wisdom and union with the divine. But when denied, repressed, or twisted by guilt, it became a source of division and suffering. The ark, with its cherubim embracing atop the mercy seat, was a symbol of this union, a cosmic marriage of opposites, a reconciliation of spirit and flesh. Some even whispered that the ark's energy was especially attuned to the state of the heart and the body. If Uzzah's hidden sin was of a sexual nature, as some apocryphal traditions suggest, then his death was not arbitrary. It was a resonance, a clash between the unresolved within him and the wholeness embodied by the ark. The Gnostics would say, the divine does not punish, it reveals. The ark did not kill Uzzah, it exposed the wound he could not bear. As David watched the blessings multiply in Obed-Edom's house, he realized that his first attempt to bring the ark to Jerusalem had been marked by presumption, by a focus on outward celebration rather than inner preparation. He saw now that the journey was not just a physical procession, but a spiritual passage. The ark demanded not just ritual, but honesty, a willingness to bring all that was hidden into the light. So, David gathered the people once more. This time the approach was different. Sacrifices were offered, not as bribes to an angry God, but as symbols of surrender, of humility, of the recognition that the sacred cannot be controlled or possessed. The music was still joyful, but it was tempered by awe. Every step was a prayer, every dance a confession, every shout of praise a cry for mercy. The Gnostic teachers, watching from the margins, saw in this procession a living enactment of the soul's journey. The ark was the heart, the holy of holies within each person. To draw near was to risk everything, to have one's secrets exposed, one's wounds revealed, one's life transformed. But the reward was great, not just survival, but blessing, abundance, and the joy of union with the divine. As the ark entered Jerusalem at last, the city erupted in celebration. But beneath the surface a deeper current flowed, a recognition that the true journey was inward, that the real temple was the soul, and that the greatest danger was not in touching the sacred, but in refusing to be touched by it. The story of Uzzah and the ark lingers as a riddle, a challenge, and an invitation. What secrets do we carry as we approach the holy? What blessings do we forfeit when we hide from our own truth? The ark waits, silent and golden, at the center of every heart. The journey is not over, it has only just begun. The ark's arrival in Jerusalem was marked by a celebration unlike any the city had ever seen. Trumpets blared, cymbals crashed, and the people poured into the streets, their voices rising in a tide of praise and awe. David, shedding all royal pretense, danced with abandon before the ark, his joy unrestrained and his humility laid bare for all to see. Yet beneath the jubilation, a deeper current pulsed, a collective memory of Uzzah's fate and the sobering knowledge that the sacred could not be approached lightly. For the Gnostics, this moment was not just a historical event, but a cosmic drama, a living parable of the soul's journey toward wholeness. The ark, now resting in the heart of Jerusalem, was more than a national treasure. It was a symbol of the divine presence dwelling within the human soul. Its golden form, guarded by cherubim, was a reminder that the path to the holy is both perilous and transformative. The city's rejoicing masked an undercurrent of trembling, for everyone knew the same power that brought blessing to Obed-Edom could just as easily bring judgment to those who approached with hidden shadows. It is here, in the aftermath of the ark's triumphal entry, that the deepest mysteries unfold. The Gnostic sages gathered in secret, pondering the paradox of the ark. how it could be both a source of life and a bringer of death. They saw in the story of Uzzah a warning, but also an invitation. The ark's energy, they taught, was not arbitrary or cruel. It was a mirror reflecting the true state of the soul. Where there was honesty, openness, and the courage to face one's own darkness, the ark's presence became a fountain of blessing. Where there was denial, repression, or unresolved shame, especially the kind that clings to sexuality and desire, the ark's light became unbearable, burning away the masks and exposing the wounds beneath. The city's priests resumed their rituals with renewed caution, but the people's hearts were restless. Whispers spread of hidden sins and secret shames, of the need for purification, not just of the body, but of the spirit. The Gnostics, ever the outsiders, spoke in riddles and parables. The ark is within you. What you bring before it will be revealed. Do not fear the light, for it alone can heal. David himself was changed. The memory of Uzzah's death haunted him, a constant reminder that leadership was not about control, but about surrender. He began to seek wisdom, not just from the priests, but from the prophets and mystics, those who understood that the true temple was the heart. In the quiet hours of the night, he pondered the nature of sin, not as a list of forbidden acts, but as anything that separated the soul from its source. He wondered what wounds he carried, what secrets he had yet to face. The ark's presence in Jerusalem became a catalyst for transformation. Some were drawn to its mystery, seeking healing and wisdom. Others recoiled, afraid of what might be revealed if they drew too near. The city itself seemed to pulse with a new energy, a sense that the divine was not distant, but dangerously close, inviting each person to a deeper honesty. In hidden gatherings, the Gnostic teachers shared the secret texts, the apocryphal Gospels, the mystical commentaries, the stories of Sophia and the divine feminine. They spoke of the union of opposites, of the need to reconcile the body and the spirit, the masculine and the feminine, the light and the shadow. They taught that sexuality, far from being a source of shame, was a sacred force, a path to knowledge and wholeness when embraced with reverence and truth. But when denied or twisted by fear, it became a barrier, a source of division and pain. The story of Uzzah became a touchstone, a living question for every seeker. What am I hiding from the light? What wounds do I carry, unhealed and unspoken? The ark's power was not just a relic of the past, but a living reality, calling each person to face themselves and to risk transformation. As the years passed, the ark remained at the center of Jerusalem's spiritual life. Its mysteries were never fully explained, its power never fully tamed. But for those with eyes to see, it was a constant invitation to bring all that was hidden into the light, to embrace the paradox of blessing and judgment, to walk the path of self-knowledge and spiritual union. And so the story lingers, a riddle, a warning, and a promise. The ark waits, silent and golden, in the heart of every soul, asking, "Are you ready to be seen? Are you willing to be changed?" The journey continues, and the mystery deepens, for the true ark is not of wood and gold, but of flesh and spirit, longing for the touch that heals rather than destroys.